Hey there, it's me, and once again I'm here presenting my thoughts on Proverbs from a woman's perspective as part of our Reedy focus on Proverbs. Although last week we had a quick look at chapter 25, today I'm going back to chapter 31 with the list of qualities for a godly woman. Proverbs 31:20. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. David and I grew up in quite different environments. We were both extremely blessed to come from loving Christian homes. But whilst I was the youngest of three and grew up a bit of a princess, David grew up with his father, Reverend Gordon Moyes, in ministry as superintendent of the Wesley Mission, a church whose mission was to bring help, home and hope to the vulnerable and the needy in Sydney. From his early teenage years, David worked with the homeless, the mentally ill, the gender confused, the addicted, and so on. So you can imagine how when we started going out, my eyes were opened. I worked in the city, and sometimes we would meet up for lunch or go out in the city after work. And every time that happened, we would always have a different homeless man approach us for a chat with Dave, their friend. The most memorable moment was when we'd just become engaged and one of David's friends came up to us. Now, I'd gotten to know Johnny a little bit by this time. He was extremely dirty and smelly, and so I would try and hold my breath while he was around, or try and be discreet, but I'm sure it was quite obvious, to cover up my nose to breathe. His hair was matted together and his nose was always, a bit runny. And I'm sure you get the picture. Anyway, Johnny was excited for us and congratulated us on our engagement. Then asks, "Oh, Dave, can I give your girlfriend a kiss?" I was horrified. I froze as David calmly says to Johnny, "Yeah, sure." This time in life was such a learning curve for me. I hadn't been exposed to this world before. Of course, I knew about homelessness and poverty. I knew it existed. I'd seen the TV ads with the starving African children, but it wasn't something that was on my radar that homelessness and poverty existed on my doorstep. I was fortunate to learn from great examples how to be accepting and welcoming to the poor and the needy from both David, but also his amazing mother Bev, that loved on all the needy and homeless that crossed her path. These days, I think everybody's a bit more aware of poverty, or maybe it's just me because of experiences both here, and we've been on mission trips overseas and experienced it. It's a massive problem, but how can we help? The poor and needy have been in society forever. The Bible talks about the poor over 300 times. There are instructions to farmers to leave portions of fields unharvested for the poor to gather, and leave grapes on the grapevines for the poor and the foreigners. If you are generous to the poor, you will be blessed, it says in somewhere else. Jesus challenged the rich young ruler to sell all his possessions to give to the poor. To mention just a few examples, this verse in Proverbs says, "She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy." I find the wording of this verse in particular challenging. It doesn't just say she helps the poor, it says she opens her arms to the poor. Opening your arms is such a physical act. I don't mean physical like when Johnny wanted to give me a kiss and a hug, although it could encompass that. I mean, when you open your arms to something, it's to embrace it. We need to embrace the needs of the poor, take ownership of helping them. The verse goes on to say she extends her hands to the needy, another physical act, to extend your hands, to reach out to the needy. Both phrases use verbs, doing words. They require action. Something to think about. I believe the verse has a dual meaning, referring to embracing the spiritually poor and extending a hand to the spiritually needy as well as the physical. Maybe that's why this verse is written as an instruction for women in particular, because of that motherly sixth sense we have on picking up on these things and our natural nurturing instincts? Something to think about. So how can we physically and spiritually open our arms to the poor and extend our hand to the needy? Pray that you will see opportunities when they're presented, and then for God's wisdom how to deal with the opportunities when they come along. But beware, God answers prayers, so be ready. Because if you ask for opportunities, either spiritually and or physically, they will come along. So get ready, follow through, and you will be blessed. Other physical ways, get hands-on and involved with Reedy Care. Karen is always after volunteers for the Op Shop or the Reedy Care Ministries. Miriam, Hengyi and Chloe all help out with the homeless through Agape Ministry that Reedy Care also helps out. Let's Get Together, led by Zena, raise money for our missionaries that help the needy overseas. And also Samaritan's Purse with the Christmas box appeal. We have Terry and Ruth that are helping the poor and needy in Tara in outback Queensland. Lynn Turner helps the spiritually poor and the needy in women's prisons. There's so many ways you can help. And in helping others, you yourself will be helped and blessed. If you'd like to get hands-on, then please speak to someone in the office at Reedy and they will help you discern and point you in the right direction. I know I've gone on a bit over time this week, but I'd like to actually finish with this thought-provoking poem that fits in with this theme and follows Jesus' command to help the poor and needy. If Jesus were here on earth, would you offer him a meal? Would you feed him when he was hungry? Take him out on a 2-for-1 deal? Would you shout him a sausage at Bunnings? Buy him groceries, his pantry to fill? If Jesus were here on earth, would you offer him a meal? If Jesus were here on earth, would you invite him in for a cup of tea? Would you use your very best China tea set? Would you show him hospitality? Would you buy him a coffee at Zaraffa's? Would you get him water when he was thirsty? If Jesus were here on earth, would you invite him in for a cup of tea? If Jesus were here on earth, would you give him clothes to wear? Would you clean out your wardrobe to share? Would you donate it to Reedy Care? Would you buy him socks to new shoes without holes? Would you clothe him where he was bare? If Jesus were here on earth, would you give him clothes to wear? If Jesus were here as a stranger, would you welcome him into your home? Would you invite him in very graciously if the streets were where he usually roamed? Would you give him a bed to rest his head, offer friendship when he was alone? If Jesus were here as a stranger, would you welcome him into your home? If Jesus were here and unwell, would you care for him while he was sick? Would you drive him to doctor's appointments and buy his medicine that he requires to tick? Would you prepare him some meals for the freezer? Would you help him if he needed you quick? If Jesus were here and unwell, would you care for him while he was sick? If Jesus were here and in prison, would you ever pay him a visit? Would you write him letters of encouragement? Would you pray for his safety within it? Would you find it in your heart to forgive him? Would you trust him again? Would you risk it? If Jesus were here and in prison, would you ever pay him a visit? Matthew 25:35-36. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of the least of these, you were doing it to me. Thanks for listening. Let's get hands on at helping and have a fabulous week.